And now it's time for more Commitment 2010 election news. All this week we're having the 4 candidates for Honolulu Mayor on our morning news for live interviews, discussing everything from rail to sewer fees to the city budget. Councilman Rod Tam was on Tuesday, and this morning we welcome Panos. Good morning, Mr. Prevadoros, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mr. Prevadoros, UH engineering professor, thanks again for coming on. Now, you've established yourself as the anti-rail candidate, and what would you do if elected mayor with the rail project, because it's already in motion? The environmental study is being looked at by the Lingle administration, and 2 contracts have already been awarded.
Absolutely true. We're still in the environmental process. This project has not concluded it, which means if we wanted to build something tomorrow, we cannot. We still have ways to go to get all the paperwork sorted out. Once it's approved, I'm going to stop it. We may have spent quite a few $1 million to plan it, but it's the wrong project for the wrong place. It doesn't belong. We cannot afford it. We do not need it. The environmental study all by itself clearly says that it will remove only 1% of the cars, and it will increase transit share from 6% to 7%. And for all of that, we pay $6 billion. It simply doesn't make sense because 93%, the rest of it still drives.
But how specifically would you stop the project when you've got these contracts that have been awarded? You have a project manager. It sounds like if you did stop it, there would be a can of worms. There could be lawsuits in the future?
There will be a can of worms either way. It can be stopped. Executive privilege has its privileges. I mean, the Honolulu area rapid transit was a more advanced system during the transit administration in the 80s. And then the town elected Eileen Anderson. She didn't sign on it. So Hart was dead.
Would you be ignoring the will of the people when voters, the majority of voters, voted for rail?
That is correct in the sense that I need to educate the folks that we voted for a completely different system. We voted for light rail, we voted for congestion relief, we voted going through Salt Lake, and we voted for paying less than $4.6 billion. All of the 4 conditions of the project are now totally violated.
The question on the ballot was, would you approve of a steel wheel system?
Right. But then all the commercials were given all the characteristics. All the characteristics of the project are now violated. So at a minimum, we need to take a revote.
Some critics say that you're just a one-trick pony, as some would say. What's your response to that?
Actually, we need to talk about the rail because it is the elephant in the room. Now we have an even bigger elephant, and that is called the sewage and the environmental treatment. The price of the rail, if you believe the city, is somewhere south of $6 billion. The price of the consent decree with the EPA is over $7 billion. So the sewers really flush the rail down the toilet. A responsible mayor should understand that we cannot do both. And one of them is a consent decree, which means you must do. The other one is a charter amendment. You know, Mahia, in 2006, we voted in a bikeway amendment with 70% of the vote, and the city has done 0 on it. So
you've made a name for yourself as an engineering professor for UH. You're an expert in our roads, but what type of managerial experience do you have? And have you hired anyone in the state, and have you managed them?
Oh, quite a lot, actually. I have run personally projects in excess of $2 million, and I have run collaborative projects in excess of $2 billion. I have actually partnered with quite a few local and international firms on transportation and infrastructure.
And have you hired workers before?
Oh, absolutely. Hired and fired.
Hired and fired.
Yes.
How many workers are you talking about?
About 40.
And how would you compare this experience to your opponents, Kirk Caldwell, who's the acting mayor, and Peter Carlisle, former city prosecutor?
Their experience is significant but very, very focused. And the significant part about it is that the job of the mayor is infrastructure and operations. And both of them have very little clue about it.
If elected mayor, what would you do about furlough Fridays, which are affecting the city employees right now?
I will try to cut them back as much as possible, or even eliminate them. I believe there are other ways to balance the budget, and not with furloughs.
What specifically would that be?
Specific way, there are departments, many departments inside the city that actually are funded, say, for 100 positions, but there are only 88 warm bodies. Where is the rest? So there is some fat there that can be reallocated or cut.
All right, Panos Provodoros, I
All right,
appreciate your
Mahia,
time. Thank you so
absolutely.
much. And if you'd like to see this interview again, you can log on to KITV.com. We'll be putting all of the candidate interviews on our website again. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
And coming